You know how sometimes a single clip can just explode online and bring a huge, age-old conversation roaring back to life? Well, that's exactly what happened here. A viral video pitted a classic philosophical challenge against a really detailed theological response. So today, we're going to deconstruct that response, argument by argument, and really get into the logic being presented. So it all kicks off with this two-part challenge. I mean, it's direct, it's pointed, and it asks two of the most enduring questions in these kinds of debates. One is about origins, and the other is about interaction. Okay, so let's get into it. The response we're looking at treats these as two totally separate challenges, and each one gets its own unique line of reasoning. Right, so on one hand, you've got the question of beginnings. Where did God come from? And on the other, you have the question of mechanics. How can something that isn't physical actually affect the physical world? The response we're analyzing tackles both of these, but probably not in the way you'd expect. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. The apologist's first move isn't to give some origin story for God. Nope. Instead, the whole strategy is to challenge the very foundation of the question itself. And this is the absolute key to understanding the whole thing. The question, where did God come from, has a hidden assumption baked right into it. It assumes God is a being inside of time, subject to cause and effect, just like us. The entire counter-argument rests on rejecting that idea, saying that God, by definition, has to be outside of all these physical laws. So, to back up this idea of a God that exists outside our physical universe, the response pulls in a pretty cool scientific concept, and this becomes the building block for the rest of the case. This is the foundation right here. The argument is that you just can't have one of these without the other two. Think about it for a second. If you have matter but no space, where do you put it? And if you have matter and space but no time, when do you put it? The logic here is that all three had to pop into existence at the exact same instant. And this is where the speaker pulls in biblical support for the idea. The very first verse of the Bible is presented as a kind of blueprint for this continuum. In the beginning, that's your time, God created the heaven, that's space, and the earth, that's your matter, all there in one sentence. This idea then gets reinforced by pointing out this pattern of threes, or trinities, that show up in each part. Time has past, present, and future. Space has length, width, and height. Matter has solid, liquid, and gas. This is argued to be not just some coincidence, but a sign of an intentional, ordered design woven into the fabric of creation. So if God created this entire system, where does that put God? This analogy makes the concept way more concrete. I mean, the person who programs a computer isn't a character running around inside the software, right? They exist completely outside of it. Well, the argument goes, in the exact same way, the creator of the universe isn't contained within it, which means they aren't affected by its laws, like time. All right, so that pretty much covers the first challenge by redefining God as being outside of time. Now, the argument makes a hard pivot to tackle that second question. How can a spiritual force have any influence on a material universe? Instead of giving a direct, mechanical explanation, the speaker just flips the script by pointing to our own human experience. The argument is basically this. We already accept that non-physical things, like love or envy or even our ability to reason, have very real physical effects on our bodies and the world. If we accept this on a human scale, why is it so hard to accept on a cosmic one? And this all builds to the ultimate counter question. It completely shifts the burden of proof. If our brains are just the result of random chemicals bumping into each other, what basis do we have for trusting that the thoughts coming out of it are logical or true? It's a real challenge to the foundation of a purely materialist worldview. So, everything we've talked about culminates in one final, overarching philosophical statement. It's an idea that tries to tie everything together, addressing not just the questions that were asked, but the very nature of asking them in the first place. When it's all said and done, it comes down to this, a fundamental mismatch of scale. The argument concludes that it's just an impossible task for a finite, 3-pound brain to try and fully wrap itself around an infinite concept. So by this logic, the limitation isn't with the idea of God, it's with our own ability to understand. And this final quote just reframes the entire debate in a really powerful way. It suggests that the fact that God is incomprehensible isn't a failure of the argument, but is actually a necessary attribute. Think about it. An entity that could be fully contained within a human mind wouldn't be an infinite God, would it? And that leaves us right here, with the core philosophical tension at the heart of this entire debate. When we bump up against the limits of our own understanding, does that serve as evidence against an idea? Or could it actually be evidence for a reality that's just bigger than our ability to comprehend it? It's definitely a question worth thinking about.